I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22. As in, Josh Nickelberry dropped 22 points in his first game for LaSalle. Seeing as Taylor Swift was also dropping Red Taylor's version this week, I can only assume that Josh is a fellow Swiftie. Hello, I'm Siobhan Nolan.
And I'm Tyler Small. Kayla Sproul went off to kick off the season, posting a double-double with 17 rebounds. 17! I haven't even gone to 17 classes this semester. You're watching LaSalle TV's home for Explorer Athletics, SportsLine.
Welcome to SportsLine. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Basketball season is finally here, and we're catching you up on what you might have missed at Gola on Tuesday.
And then later, don't worry, because we're going to talk more basketball.
Yeah, but first, let's take a look at our SportsLine top 3.
Number 1, after a successful outing at Kirk Pool last Saturday afternoon, Sam Henninger has been chosen as the NovaCare Student Athlete of the Week. Henninger, a junior from Glenside, Pennsylvania, was part of the highlight for the men's team against Seton Hall, earning the top spot in the men's 1-meter dive. His score of 277.5 well surpassed the field, the next closest spot being his teammate Steven Stasola with a score of 256.8.
Number 2, after graduating in May 2021 after 4 years with the Explorers, Emily Johnston, Jess Hewitt, and Maddie Dehowski will all return to LaSalle women's lacrosse for one final season. Head coach Katie Rhodes Abbott announced with the NCAA allowing one extra year of eligibility due to the global COVID-19 pandemic, the trio of Explorers who helped lead LaSalle to 20 wins over the last 4 seasons are able to return to 20th and Olney for another season in 2022.
And number 3, former closer for the Explorers baseball team, Connor Hinchliff, has announced via Twitter that he will be joining the Los Angeles Angels as a pitching analyst. After tying the school record for saves in a year with 13, the Phillies signed the LaSalle grad to a minor league deal. After working as a driveline athlete at the same time, he has decided to step away from the playing field and will work full-time with the Angels.
It's a pretty cool alumni news happening working in the MLB. That'll be really great. Definitely want to highlight Sam Henninger, though. It's great to see, swimming and diving getting some recognition, really hitting their stride as well. And as you mentioned before in our top 3, his score was well above, everyone else in the competition. So that just goes to show how really good swimming and diving is doing.
And it's kind of just taking the page from last year and how effective they were and how many medals they were bringing in, because they were effective both in the pool and on the diving board, because they just really had a great chemistry and relationship, as we will talk about later in the men's and women's side. But that was a really impressive feat for sure. And
then with women's lacrosse, it's great to see that we're going to have more players coming back, taking advantage of that extra year that they were allowed because of the pandemic. Lacrosse is going to be very exciting to see. It might happen for other sports, we don't know. Some players might want to take advantage of that as well, but to see, them make lacrosse all that stronger is going to be really good to see as well.
Absolutely, and these 3 are not the necessary goal rack-up players, or they don't have the biggest differential in the spreadsheet, I should say. But you talk about Maddie Dehowski, she is a steady force behind the back of the net in that rotational offense. Emily Johnson is a impressive midfielder who has been a huge force for them this entire season, or last season, I should say. And Jess Hugh is one of the best short-stick defensewomen that they have on this team. So it will be a fantastic trio coming back to an already veteran-esque team, because there were so many seniors lost last year, and just be able to salvage any of them is huge.
Absolutely, and I can't even talk today. I am so sorry. We cannot have enough leadership in women's lacrosse and across any sport, really. So just to see that they're going to have so much experience, 4 years is going to be, that's more than enough time to really impart that wisdom and just bring all that, more experience back and give LaSalle that advantage and, hopefully bring a lot more wins this season.
Absolutely. And I just want to go back to my guy, Connor. Impressive resume that he already has built up. Getting the signing from the Phillies is obviously a dream come true. I got to work with him a little bit with my internship with the Reading Fighting Phils, and just being able to see him and his work ethic was one thing, but he was just such a brilliant guy. And obviously, to have the ability to be a closer in college baseball, for one, is kind of like not a position that's usually made. So to have his upside there was impressive to have in the back of the bullpen, and he's going to bring a lot of great analysis to that program out there in Los Angeles.
Absolutely, and we love seeing LaSalle alum getting out there in the pros and, being able to talk about it. And that's it for the top 3. Now let's see how our teams did in this week's recaps. Men's basketball faced off against Sacred Heart at Tom Gola Arena to get the 2021-22 season started. Junior transfer Josh Nickelberry got things started for the Explorers offense in the first quarter, hitting the first triple of the game and collecting 7 points in the first 8 minutes. The Pioneers would take the lead with a small run of their own, but freshman Khalil Brantley helped the blue and gold back to a 24-22 lead with 5 minutes to go in the first half. Thanks to a defense that held Sacred Heart to shooting just 1 in 12 from the field, LaSalle went into the break with a 30-26 advantage. The start of the second half saw a 12-5 run for the home team, with Nickelberry's 6th three-pointer of the night and senior Anwar Gill's steal and dunk, propelling LaSalle ahead 42-31. A double technical from Sacred Heart gifted the Explorers 4 free throws, but they were unable to connect, and the Pioneers broke out into a 15-0 run that gave them a 57-55 lead. The blue and gold were able to fight back to regain the lead, going up by 5 points. Sacred Heart were able to claw back to draw the points level, forcing extra time. It was a high-scoring overtime period, but the visitors inched out LaSalle 19-14, handing the Explorers a narrow 86-81 loss.
Women's basketball kicked off the 2021-22 season by welcoming in Coppin State. The Explorers jumped out to an early 9-0 lead, courtesy of a trio of threes. Coppin State answered back with a run of their own to make it 13-12 after 1 quarter. After a back-and-forth end to the second, Coppin State jumped out to their biggest advantage, courtesy of an 8-0 run to make it a 5-point game. A clutch shot from junior Amy Jacobs with time expiring made it 50-48 heading into the fourth, but the Eagles would narrowly hold on to the advantage, outscoring the Explorers 17-15 in the final 10 minutes. Senior Kayla Sproul led the Explorers offensively, posting a double-double with 16 points and 17 rebounds, while junior Claire Jacobs had 15 and sophomore Jay Hayes dropped 13 points.
The men's swimming and diving team hosted Seton Hall at Kirk Pool. The Explorers were able to reign victorious in both relay events. The team, consisting of Trenton Bird, Jason Rosales, Zach Wolbert, and Zach Miller, took first in the 200-yard medley relay, clocking in with a time of 1 minute and 33 seconds. On top of that relay win, another Explorers team of 4 took first in the 200-yard freestyle relay as well. Wolbert competed in both relays as well as taking first in the 200-yard butterfly. Junior Jake Kramer won the 1,000-yard freestyle with a time of 10 minutes and 7 seconds. For diving, junior Sam Henninger took the top spot in the 1-meter dive, followed by senior Steven Stasola in second. Despite stellar performances, the Explorers were outperformed by Seton Hall with the final score in favor of the Pirates, 173-126.
The women's swimming and diving team had a bit of a better outcome when going up against Seton Hall. To get off to a fast start, the Explorers consisted of Sarah Rosetto, Megan Heist, Tony Rafferty, and Bryn Peterson took first in the 200-yard medley for the first event of the day. Rosetto put up a stellar performance, claiming 3 other personal wins in the 200-yard individual medley, 200-yard freestyle, and 200-yard backstroke. Rafferty also added on 3 more personal wins with the 100-yard freestyle, 100-yard butterfly, and 50-yard freestyle. Senior Phoebe Shea dominated the diving team, taking first in the 1 and 3 meter dives collectively for the women's team, but it wasn't enough as they lost to Seton Hall 173-126.
It's really weird that both teams had the exact same scores against Seton Hall for swimming and diving. It's a little creepy. But for basketball, it was a disappointing first game for both teams. With men's, the performances were great. Josh Nickelberry especially, dropping 22 points in this game. It goes to show, we already knew that he was a great, transfer player coming in, but to go out on your first game in a program where, the team kind of lacked some chemistry because of what happened with the pandemic last season. They weren't able to really bond as much as they normally would. So for him to come into that team, drop 22, and just put in the performance that he did, to me, is super, super impressive.
Yeah, what an introduction, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously the Explorer entourage and the crowd was loving it. And it, obviously, to be true, I mean, it was his career high over playing at Louisville, where he had a lot of great production there, and he was just a force to be reckoned with. And he was the only one really hitting shots on the outside, 6 for 11 from three-point land, and just 7 rebounds to go on top of it. He was really effective in everything. And we're going to go into the full team and just overall what went wrong in this loss and kind of losing that early advantage that they had. But a lot of great learning points and a lot of great strides that we saw from this team being able to kick off the season this way.
Exactly. And, we had some veterans take a really good, points for themselves. Sharif Kenny and Jack Clark. Kenny had 18 points. Clark had 12 points. So it's really good to see them on the board. But Khalil Brantley is also a name I wanted to mention. Even though he didn't get a ton of points, he still made a really good offensive impact on the team. And again, as a freshman, coming in and having the performance that he did, he performed really well. Especially when the Explorers were down, he was able to kind of put them back and get that lead back, so definitely want to highlight him as well.
Yes, absolutely. And just to talk about the women's side a little bit as well, obviously a heartbreaking loss.
Yeah.
3 points in overtime. That was another back and forth affair where the real aspect of it, just that 8-0 run that they gave up to start the second half, that really hurt them. And we could talk about that for both sides, that it was just basketball's a game of runs, obviously, and just being able to limit them as much as you can is a huge catalyst. And we're going to get into this a little bit, but I was very surprised to see Mountain McGillivrary's approach to completely small ball, just completely different than what we've seen in years past. He's always preferred to have his scoring being through the top 3 in his lineup, but just Jordan Lewis was almost a non-factor in this game, only had 3 field goal attempts, and I think that was kind of their demise because they got heavily outscored in the paint, obviously, and they were just shooting an array of threes, and then it leads to live or dying by the 3. I never think that's a good philosophy, even though that's what the numbers seem to back up nowadays, because you have Molly Massanin-Antonio. She's the best shooter on this team. She goes 0 for 6. That's your difference right there. You can't put all of it on one player, of course, but you need to be able to get the different aspects of your scoring into it.
Exactly, and with such like a close game like that, and it's interesting because Coppin State didn't dominate. It was a very close game that entire way, and so they really only pulled ahead in the last 5 minutes. So it's interesting to see that even though the Explorers did come away with that loss, it wasn't, that they got their butts kicked. They played very well, on the same field strength-wise. So, we'll get into that a lot later. But swimming and diving, that is definitely something that we want to highlight. Sam Henninger with the 1-meter dive, amazing scores there. The relay teams did great. And, we say this a lot on the show, but with swimming and diving, the result is unfortunate, but the performance, as we talked about, was extremely impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I got to start by putting my hand up. The women's side won. Yeah. That is my mistake. We were an honest show here, so we will just get that out of the way. With Salle, obviously, getting it done at Kirk-Poole. And it was a full effort from not only the relay teams, but Sarah Rosetto at the one part, just being able to be so active throughout the entirety of the match, showing the endurance of this team. They do a lot of harsh conditioning throughout the off season and getting to the season, and it showed precedent right here, having people take multiple events and taking home the crown.
Yeah, Sarah Rosetto is always a name that we mention because she always does great individually and in the team. So just to be able to see her back on the board and getting those results is, very promising for us. We love to talk about it, and we love that the women's team did win. And that's it for recaps, but when we come back, we'll tell you our basketball players to watch this season. Stay tuned.
What to expect when you're expecting a teenager.
Today we're talking about how to wake up your teen, and this works literally every time.
Good kisses. Good kisses. You heard how loud
I heard. It wasn't you. Yeah. It was the...
Is that bacon?
You don't have to know it all to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same.
Extinction is forever. To save America's most iconic and imperiled species from extinction, we must fight for their future. Fight to save the natural lands that wildlife call home. Fight to limit pollution. Fight for smart development. Fight for their future. And fight for ours. For so goes nature, so goes us.
welcome back. Like we said before our break, we'd like to take a chance to talk about some of the players that are going to be impacts on this team. We got a small sample size with opening day, but homecoming's ahead of us and the long season after that. So
Yeah.
let's start with the men's side. Siobhan, who is your player that you are looking out for?
So you're going to hear me say this a lot. I am seriously backing Josh Nickelberry. He has proven himself at St. Louis, and he's such a great locker room guy. He's got a lot of personality. He's very entertaining, very funny. I can attest to this because he sits behind me in one of my comm classes. So, you know, he's a really great personality, but the numbers speak for themselves. He has such great ability. The 22 points versus Sacred Heart, that is a good performance on any day, but on your first game with LaSalle, a new team, you know, a lot of new players and a lot of kind of rearranging that Ash Howard had to do. So to put in a performance like that is just seriously so impressive. And obviously he's not a freshman. He knows college basketball. He knows how to navigate it. But I've been really impressed with how, you know, he hasn't held back. He just went out the gate and he said, you know, this is who I am, this is how I play. And he really announced himself for this men's team and for the A-10 in general. So I'm really excited to see more of that from him.
Yeah, he gave me shades of Pookie Powell for sure. Just the ability to score at such a high level at the point guard position. And he was just had such a great hesitation and no speed up to his game. He was willing to take what the defense gave him, and they gave him a lot, actually. They were kind of, it looked as though they were defending more for Jack Clark to not be a problem in this game, because I think everyone knows Jack Clark is the player to watch out for on this team.
Yeah.
And we'll see if they could utilize him better in future contests, of course. But Nickelberry realized that and realized he had to be less of a facilitator himself, and instead he took it upon himself to attack the rim when he had to, but at the same time he was able to pull back up and take shots from the outside, and he was doing everything effectively, and he was great, especially just all in the first half. A majority of his points came at the early parts of the game. Exactly,
and to see him interacting with the much older, more experienced players on that team, it really goes to show that the team chemistry is a lot better this season, which is to be expected since they've had a more normal bonding experience. But the fact that he's integrated so well into this team, and the fact that we have him for this season and next season, it's going to be really great. You know, he's bringing in a different kind of playing style and different experience playing for St. Louis and now coming into LaSalle. But, you know, he plays with a great calmness, a great just kind of level-headedness to his game, which is really important, especially in, you know, high-stakes games like the one against Sacred Heart. So I just think he's going to be a really exciting player, and I think that we are really going to see more dominant performances from him going forward.
Absolutely. But I think when you talk about just a full team effort, Jack Clark, I really am impressed with what I saw from him. He only had 12 points. Of course, we expect more offensive numbers out of him. But he posts a double-double. He picks up the 11 rebounds. He's a big factor just in every asset of the game. And I think above all else, he has the injury history. He comes off the redshirt year, and he leads the team in minutes played. He has 37 minutes, including the overtime. I think that is really great to see that he has his legs underneath him. He's going to be an impactful force. So that is one thing. And the other thing I would like to see potentially more of is I thought sneaky Clifton Moore had a great game. 23 minutes played, he only had 4 points. The plus-minus for this team, a majority of the team usually in a losing effort will have a negative plus-minus. He was plus 16. He was just a better factor defensively. When there was that presence inside, there was nothing going on inside the paint when he was out there. And Sacred Heart is a team that they were trying to force to shoot, and when Clifton Moore was on the court, he was able to do that.
And I love that you brought up Clifton Moore and the fact that he was sort of a kind of sneakily good player, because that is actually going to be a really good factor for LaSalle this season. There's a lot of hype surrounding the Sacred Heart game. You know, if you're looking at the social medias and the student section, the Explorer entourage, it was constantly jabs at who is Sacred Heart, you know, what is this school? And I don't want to say that the players bought into the hype too much, because I would like to think that they know better than that, but I think they really got excited with the team that they had, and then the game was a little disappointing, and you know, maybe too many players were trying to show out and be flashy. So the fact that Clifton Moore had that plus 16, and even though he wasn't, you know, in the leaderboard with points, he still had a good game. That's going to be super important, because if LaSalle can kind of calm down, be a little more subtle, and just kind of keep their heads down and focus on actually playing and not so much trying to show off and be this really, you know, flashy and cocky team, I think that's going to serve them well. So if they could kind of take after Clifton Moore in that sense, then it could really see a winning season.
Yeah, and that's going to be, talk about cockiness, the only way to be cocky is to not have kind of the lapses that they had mentally. I mean, 14-7 in the turnover battle, 42-24 in points in the paint. Obviously things that need to be cleaned up, but we will see in these upcoming games. But for the women's side, just to go over there, because that is another loss right there that you are going to learn a lot from.
Yes.
3-point game, you're one shot away. We talked about it. They're a 3-point heavy team. Losing by 3 is almost a good sense of irony.
Yeah.
But I think from this, we saw Kayla Sproul have her coming out party and
Yes.
potentially the season that she's going to have this year. 17 rebounds. I can't stress that enough. You don't see that in college basketball. But on top of that, she posts the 16 points. And she has just been incredible so far this year because obviously it's just one game. But when we look towards the future, I mean, we were talking about the A10 rankings and how Claire Jacobs was put behind her as a player. And we both didn't necessarily see it just because we've been swooped up in the Jacobs mania. But when you look at Kayla Sproul, she has been consistent day in and day out. She is a clear 15-8 per game, and that cannot be overestimated.
Exactly. She's kind of, done her work. She's played her part. She hasn't always been a super standout name, but this was her game. She, the attention was all on her, as it should be. And, not to say that Claire and Amy Jacobs didn't have a great game themselves. Claire was only 1 point behind her with 15 points. But, Kayla Sproul with the rebounds, the fact that she put in such a dominant performance and really is stepping into her power in these performances, it's only going to make things better because, you can have your Molly Massantonias and your Jacobs sisters, and that's great. But the more players that you can have on the sheet and the more players that other teams have to look out for, the better. So even though she has done really well in just kind of playing her part and being part of the team, the fact that she can step out in her senior year and be Kayla Sproul, an individual player, that's going to be just huge for the team as a whole.
Absolutely. So we will see what is to come in these next couple of games. Obviously, some things that need to be changed in the nearby future, but we'll wait and see.
Absolutely. And we are going to take another break, but when we come back, there are going to be some sporting events this week that we will catch you up on, so stay tuned.
Yo, bro, what's good?
What's going on?
How you feeling, man?
Doing good. How you doing?
When'd you start smoking?
Smoking? It's a jewel, bro.
It's a jewel?
Yeah.
Listen, you might as well be smoking cigarettes. When you start juuling or vaping, you're 4 times more likely to start smoking cigarettes.
Is that true?
That's very true. Give me the jewel. You don't need it.
To learn more about e-cigarettes, go to thetruth.com.
According to the Mayo Clinic, exercising has stress-busting benefits by bumping up your endorphins and improving your mood.
It's the small things that make a big difference.
Welcome back. Here are some of the upcoming sporting events for the week ahead. First up, on Friday, men's and women's cross country participate in the NCAA Mid-Atlantic Regional for a chance to represent LaSalle in the NCAA National Championship later this month.
Then it's an action-filled day on Saturday as the day kicks off with men's and women's swimming and diving competing in a tri-meet against Rider and the University of Delaware. Rowing also takes to the water as part of the Philadelphia Frostbite Regatta.
Finally, men's and women's basketball take part in the homecoming festivities as both play at home. Women's basketball plays Rider at noon before men's basketball takes Albany at 4 p.m.
Finally, to wrap up the sports week on Wednesday, men's basketball is on the road to take on Delaware, and women's basketball plays Drexel in University City.
So some pretty fun matchups coming up. Obviously, we are just so excited for homecoming.
That's going to be so much fun to finally be in person, watch a game, just take part in the whole festivities. That's just going to be really amazing to see and hopefully create a good atmosphere and hopefully get some wins.
Absolutely. I mean, I unfortunately haven't seen a homecoming win yet. I've only had 2 years to do it, of course, so give them that benefit. But looking forward to better things this year. I think this is a huge win or loss that they're coming off of that they could capitalize on in the future, get a little hungrier for that bigger home crowd, because they had a great showing on Tuesday night, but it's going to be even better with all the alumni in attendance on Saturday for both the men's and women's sides.
Oh, absolutely. And then our water sports are going to be, happening too. Swimming and diving, hopefully. The women can, stay on the hot streak. The men can kind of come back and, have a result reflect the performance. Rowing, taking on the Philadelphia Frostbite Regatta should be very exciting. And then cross country, to earn a spot in the NCAA championships. We did have Luke Erikowski represent LaSalle last year, which was very exciting, and he actually did quite well. So hopefully we can see, just more runners, representing LaSalle on the national level.
And Bombo could be a part of that group as well, and the Mancinis could really qualify for their own name. I mean, there is so much potential in this cross-country team, and they're just getting ready for a trio of seasons ahead of them, but it's going to be exciting, and I hope we can see some blue and gold representing nationally.
Oh yeah, nothing they can't handle. And that just about wraps it up for us this week. If you can't make it out to see the Explorer Report, be sure to tune in next week for our coverage. Keep up with this weekend's other sporting events by visiting goexplorers.com. You can also check out the digital edition of the Collegian, which now features SportsLine content.
Also, check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/LaSalleTV and on Instagram at SportsLineLTV. We welcome you to send your thoughts and suggestions there. This week's poll is, who had a bigger hand in these mysterious Philadelphia fires? Izzy C. or Tanya Ellis?
Ooh, see, I feel like Isaiah has it in him. I really think he could.
I can see arson in his eyes. Absolutely.
Exactly, but Tanya can get pretty fed up with us, so I feel like she has to take that anger out somewhere.
The look she just gave behind the camera, that could have burnt down an entire city.
All right, because we just ratted her out. Sorry, Tanya. But for our entire SportsLine team, I'm Siobhan Nolan.
And I'm Tyler Small. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you at the game.